The eighth, Chapman in the ninth. You lock that baby up. You get out of there. You win a series. You're 10th in a row, something the Red Sox hadn't done since 1912, except it went the other way. So this is where I want to start tonight on the Baseball Hour, 617-779-0985. Really two questions or two issues that play off the end of yesterday's game between the Red Sox and the A's, that the first Red Sox series loss in quite some time. So, to me, there were two real things to ask about this. First, little anecdote, little story time. I'll share it with you. Yesterday, I was on a trip, wrapping up a trip. I was out of town. It was a golf trip, Jimmy Stewart. You'll be very surprised to learn. And the caddies come over and they start talking about the Red Sox. And they said, yeah, that team's playing great. I said, they just lost 2 in a row. So this could be the beginning of the end. And I was sort of being a wise ass, like the sarcastic Bostonian, like, okay, they win 32 out of 37. Now they drop 2 straight. The bottom's going to fall out. Here you go. If you were raised when I was, this is exactly the justifiable emotion that you would have. Because no matter how well the Red Sox were playing at any given point in time, you always thought the end of the world was right around the corner. Sort of standard thinking for a Red Sox fan. Again, if you're my age. So the big picture question I have for you as it pertains to the Red Sox really goes something like this. Do you have any concerns at all that they're going to level off or come out of this phase, I don't want to call it a stupor because that's the wrong word, but this state in which they can do no wrong? Like, do you look at them at all and say, this has to stop? There's just no way it can go on like this. It's not realistic for a team to play baseball at that level with that many wins for that length of time. The game's just not built that way. So open up the phone line, 617-779-0985. That's one of the questions I have tonight, is just looking at the team. Do you start to worry, when is this going to end? Exactly when and how is this going to come apart? And what's it going to look like when they're back to being quote-unquote normal? Or, again, do you think they're this good? I don't think they're 32-5 good, because I don't think anybody is 32-5 good. But Rob Parker, longtime baseball writer, you may have seen some of his stuff on social media, has been covering baseball now for 40 years and had some great stuff on social media recently about some of the things he's covered and written about in the last 40 years. But he was asked about the Red Sox on the MLB Network recently. Here's what Rob Parker said.
Red Sox, 26 of 29, Rob. How about some respect?
I respect the winning. I just don't think they could keep it up. It's impossible in baseball. They've done all of this to climb out of a hole. They're in the mix now, whatever. One bad week can send this thing going the other way. They can't keep winning at this clip.
Well, no one can win at this clip. However, they're a playoff team. You said they're not a playoff team when they were down and out. And look, I don't know if I even fought you much on it, but I believe like that rotation alone would say they even traded a guy away from the rotation. They're still strong. They're in the playoffs, Rob. They're making the playoffs.
I'm going to stick with my notion that they do not make the playoffs.
Really?
That they have this incredible run, and over the last 6 weeks, they have some bumps. They come back to earth, and they do not, N-O-T, make the playoffs. And save this tape, BK.
They might win the division, Rob. How about that?
Okay. I'm not buying that.
Okay, so again, that's Rob Parker. He's covered baseball a long time. Now, let me just tell you up front, I disagree with Rob Parker. I don't think the bottom's going to fall out of the Red Sox. I was being a wise ass yesterday, but I don't think the bottom is going to fall out of the Red Sox. And deep down, I don't think you do either. So the question I guess I have is, how good are they? What do you think they can do? Where do you think the limits are? And that's just a generic big picture question until they get back on the field tonight. They'll play the Toronto Blue Jays up in Canada. And then I think after that, they have a series in Pittsburgh. Both winnable series. And with the way the Red Sox are playing, it feels like they can beat just about anybody at any given time. So, all joking aside, I don't think the bottom is going to fall out of the Red Sox. I do believe they are a playoff team. In fact, if they don't make the playoffs now, it's kind of a collapse. Given the lack of competition in the American League, it'd be a serious collapse if they somehow fall apart and miss the postseason. So I'm not anticipating that. Do I think they can get in? They should be in. Do I think they can do some damage when they get in? Yes, I do. Because I don't think the league is very good. I don't think there's a team that is playing better than the Red Sox have played, certainly over the last month plus. That's really kind of indisputable based on the wins and losses. The question is, where are the pitfalls and what are the problems? Which brings me to Jarren Duran. So this is now, again, this is sort of a bigger picture baseball question. But you know how I know when you are not really a baseball fan, you consume the game or you look at the game more like an analyst would or a nerd or a stat geek? You know how I know when you get exposed? What the real, what's the word I'm looking for? Where the real proof is that you are making judgments based on just data and you're not making judgments based on your eyes? When you tell me that Jarren Duran is a good outfielder. And a lot of you have told me this over the last several years, because the metrics tell you that. If you watched that play yesterday, you know that Jarren Duran can't read the ball off the bat. Jarren Duran is an outfielder and an athlete, but he is not a baseball player. Can I say it that way? I shouldn't have said outfielder. He's an athlete who plays baseball. He's not a baseball player is what I meant to say. He cannot read the ball off the bat. And anyone who has ever watched him play knows that. He's fast, he's strong, but he doesn't throw especially well. His instincts aren't that good. I don't think he's really all that great a base runner. He's fast, but he's not a great base runner. So if you look him up in the modern metrics, particularly as it relates to defense, you'll see that Jarren Duran, among left fielders, ranks second among all left fielders in defensive runs saved at his position. I think only Cody Bellinger has more defensive runs saved in left field, which is great if you go purely by that. In other words, because Duran is fast, he can cover a lot more ground than a lot of other players can. So by definition, he can get to a lot more balls. Makes sense. Whether or not he actually catches them is something completely different. And he doesn't often look steady when he's catching it. So the giveaway for me on whether someone is a baseball fan or just a number crunching nerd is whether you think Jarren Duran's a good outfielder. If you think Jarren Duran is a good outfielder, you are reading it, you're not watching it. Does that make sense? So Jarren Duran's defense in left field is a problem. And that play yesterday, he read the ball poorly off the bat. He never reads the ball well off the bat. Whereas if you watch Ceddanne Rafaela on any ball that's hit, more often than not, he reads it exactly right. He'll occasionally get one wrong, but Rafaela is much more graceful. Rafaela gets good jumps on the ball. And I would tell you that even in the last couple of weeks, there have been a couple of plays with Rafaela where I thought normally he makes that play, and this time he didn't. There was one of those over the weekend with the A's at Fenway Park. But overall, when you weigh it all out, the Red Sox are 6.5 up with on the first team that is out of the wild card race. So does that make sense? The top three get into the wild card. The Red Sox are in the second position. The third team is in. The fourth team is 6.5 games behind the Red Sox in the wild card standings. They have a 6.5 game lead in the wild card standings with 45 games to go. They've played 117. They got 45 games to go. They're up 6.5. If they blow that, it's a collapse. So, this is where I want to start tonight. State of the team, where they are. Are you at all concerned about the series loss against the A's? Because I know how the human mind works, and I know how the mind of Red Sox fans works. That's number one. Number two, we'll get to Wilson Contreras being booed over the weekend at Fenway Park. Apparently, some people had problems with that. I saw some commentary on social media about people saying that you shouldn't be booing the best player on your team. We'll get to that. And Craig Breslow with some interesting comments to Alex Spear in the Boston Globe today. The headline on the story is how the Red Sox put together the deal that landed All-Star Adley Rutschman. And I would tell you, I'm really not concerned in how they got Rutschman. I'm concerned, or I'm interested in the quotes from Breslow that might indicate motives, philosophies, beliefs, ideas, all those things that the team possesses as they enter the final stages of this season and the future, with the immediate future of the game very much in the balance because of the collective bargaining agreement. In other words, that's a nice, complicated way of me saying, I wonder how much of the Red Sox thinking for the long term went into their thinking at this trade deadline. Craig Breslow touched on some of that and said some other things, too, that I think are fairly revealing. So, again, 617-779-0985. We'll get to all of that tonight on the Baseball Hour.
Stay tuned for more of the Baseball Hour.
If you asked me a year ago what my skincare routine was, I would say I don't know what that means. I don't have a skincare routine. Well, my fiance stepped in and told me your face is dry. You're out in the sun all the time. You need to
I want to get to your calls here. That's from the weekend. Wilson Contreras, returning from an illness, hits a hard ground ball to the left side. Ball gets fielded. He knows he's going to be out. Peels off halfway down the first baseline, goes back to the dugout, doesn't run it out, and gets booed by fans. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't boo your best player. My question is, why not? What is it that Wilson Contreras did on that play that did not warrant him getting booed? So a guy grounds out to shortstop or third base or wherever and, half-assed it down the first baseline. You know what he almost always does? No questions asked. Even if he's not running hard, he runs through the bag, then turns around, comes back to the dugout. Contreras didn't do that on this play. He got halfway to first, saw that he was going to be out, peeled off, went right to the dugout. It wasn't even a representative effort. He literally just flat out quit. The amazing thing to me was, now you want to talk about should they boo, should they not boo? You know, the environment at the ballpark has been so good lately. How does it go from one to the other? Like, we can get into philosophical stuff like that. But to me, like, there's no room for quitting, period. He peeled off of first base halfway down the line. That's one thing. Do I want him on the team? Yes. Do I want him as my leader? No. I've said this before. Here's the part of the story that I don't think has gotten enough attention. After the game, Chad Tracy was asked about Contreras' decision to bail out. And again, Contreras overall, very competitive guy. We all know that. So even if you said, you know what, typically a competitive guy, that's out of character. He doesn't usually bail out like that. He had been ill recently, at least according to the Red Sox, missed some time, came back into the lineup after being sick. Fine, no problem. And he had also fouled a ball off his foot prior to that, so could it be that there's an injury they're covering up? Maybe. I don't know. But the fact that he bailed out, Tracy was asked about it after the game. Here's the exchange.
Are you okay with how Contreras ran out that ball?
Yeah, I know how that looks, but I'm also aware more than others that he's a little beat up and told us before the game I don't have everything today, so I'm fine, especially with a guy that plays the game as hard as he does and how hard he turns around first base all the time. I'm fine with him.
Okay, so again, Tracy defends him. Yeah, he told us he didn't have much, so I'm okay with it. Now, Tracy did say he's a little bit beat up. But this now goes back to something that happened with Jarren Duran last week when Jarren Duran hit a fly ball to left field. The Red Sox were on the road, if I'm not mistaken. That might have also been in Sacramento against the A's. But if you remember, Jarren Duran threw his hands up, yelled at the third base coach, how come he didn't wave him in? Do you remember what Chad Tracy said after the game about that one? Jimmy, do we have that one as well? So this was, we don't have it. Okay, so this is, Tracy defended Duran when the incident happened in Oakland and said that Duran was not pissed that the runner didn't get waved home. That what Duran was really pissed off at was himself. And he wasn't yelling at the third base coach, and he wasn't yelling at Wilson Contreras, who was at third base at the time. It was a blatant lie in an attempt to, and I understand the motive, I'm going to protect the player. But we all saw it. So now that Chad Tracy says this about Wilson Contreras, why should I believe him? So this is the danger it gets into with a manager. And when you say, well, he's just protecting his player. So so should I assume now that he's lying every time he's protecting his player? So I didn't love the way Tracy handled it at the time. I still don't love the way Tracy handled it. And I have one more thought on Chad Tracy that I'll give to you quickly, because I've heard a lot of people say Chad Tracy should now be a front runner for manager of the year because the way things have turned around with the Red Sox. I'm fine with that if you want to give him manager of the year. I think people get it wrong every time when they say what turned around the Red Sox season. Chad Tracy took over when the Red Sox were 10-17. By the time they got to 22-29, they were still 7 games under. They turned their season around later, and I'll tell you what the real turning point of the Red Sox season was. And let me make this clear. I think Chad Tracy has done a nice job. Who doesn't? But when we say that the firing of Alex Cora is what triggered the turnaround of the Red Sox, that's where you're wrong. Cora was out after 27 games. By the time the Red Sox got to 47 games, or maybe it was 51, I think they were 22-29. By the time they got to that point, they were still 7 under. They hadn't turned their season around yet, and Tracy had been here for more than a month. So to me, there was something else that triggered the turnaround. And you can say, well, it was when they started to hit. I'm talking about something more specific. Sebastian's on the Cape. What do you get, Sebastian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think 2 things. Worst case scenario, I think the Sox go 500 the rest of the way, still sneak into the playoffs. Got no problem with that. The other thing, is there any concern on your end about, like, this Chapman and his inability to be effective in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I am worried about Chapman. There's been a hamstring issue there all year. He's not been the same guy for a little while now. And just compare the numbers to this year, from last year to this year. And when I say the numbers, I'm talking specifically about the walks. Look at his walk rate. He's walked guys at a much higher rate this year, almost double than where he was a year ago. And I would say that that's usually a good indication of a couple of things. One that maybe fatigue, an injury, just overall lack of command. And I would say another guy you should be watching on this is Jake Bennett. Jake Bennett's walk rate in the last 4 or 5 outings has doubled. And it's not high. It's still under 3 walks per 9 innings. But early in the year, he was walking 1.5 guys per 9. Now it's almost 3. So that to me speaks of fatigue. And that's something you should keep, or injury, and something to keep an eye on. And I mean that more with Chapman than I do with Bennett. With Bennett, I think it's fatigue. Mike's in New Hampshire. Mike, go ahead.
Maz, I love when you made the comment about Duran being an athlete who happens to play baseball. And it made me remember that famous quote, old quote by Eddie Stanky, I think when he was manager of the White Sox and coaching the All-Star team. And by no means am I equating Yaz with Duran, but Eddie Stanky, when asked about Yaz, he called Yaz an all-star from the neck down, and that made me like, oh man, that's got to be Duran as well. Interested in your comments on that. Thanks, Maz.
Yeah, so again, it just, I've heard about the comments Stanky made about Yastrzemski many, many years ago, and I don't know if it was an insinuation that Yaz wasn't all that bright a player or what have you. Yaz had good baseball instincts, though. Duran has none. 0. So there's that old phrase that when you watch a guy play the outfield, he gets a good jump on the ball. And what that means, really, there's no measurement for that. There's no analytic for that. It's just a player can anticipate contact, can read the swing and the pitch, and know where the ball might go, and can start to move before contact is even made. Rafaela can do that. Duran can. And Duran will never be able to do it. Remember, when Duran came to the big leagues, he couldn't track a ball at all. We are now 5 or 6 years later. He's better at it than he was, but he's still not good. Greg's in Rhode Island. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Maz. So I'm a huge baseball fan, and admittedly, I haven't watched much of them early in the season. They didn't give us much of a reason to watch. But lately, with their success, I've been noticing a lot of aggressiveness on the base path. And I'm wondering how much of that has contributed to their recent success, because I've noticed, them trying to steal a lot of bags or, pushing an extra bag or 2 on base hits. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts about the aggressiveness on the base path has been with their recent success.
Yeah, Greg, I think it's been a factor. I think most people would tell you it has been a factor. I'm certainly not going to sit here and minimize it, because it's definitely a part of their game now. And you can see it. I mean, guys are tagging up to go from first to second. I guess I'm talking about Durbin more than anyone. Ball goes into the right field corner. He tags up to go from first to second, gets himself in scoring position. Or guys running from first to third on balls that they might not otherwise have run on. Just little things like that. And I would say, yes, they play a much more aggressive brand of offensive baseball than they did before. The real change, I think, is in their ability to get on base. And by the way, I said this last week, and I'm going to continue to say it because I think we all kind of blow past it, because we all love the small ball and the moving of the runners and the bunting and the running and all of that. It's fun to watch. But it only gets you so far. You still have to hit the ball out of the ballpark if you want to win, particularly late in the year in October. And when you face good pitching in the playoffs, it's hard to string together 4 or 5 hits. You're going to have to hit home runs to score or manufacture some runs. So you're going to have to do some other things. But it's hard to do it with just hitting. And I mean hitting for average. It's a harder thing to do. So yes, absolutely, they are being more aggressive. But the big thing is they're getting on base more. And that, to me, speaks to the real turning point of this Red Sox season. And it wasn't the firing of Cora and hiring of Chad Tracy. I mean, that has certainly contributed to it, but I almost never think that it's about a manager. I mean, sometimes it's not debatable. So you want to talk about Morgan Magic back in 1988, for those who remember that? In 88, the Red Sox literally fired the manager at the trading deadline. I mean, the All-Star break. It was John McNamara, who had all kinds of personal problems and really had created a toxic clubhouse, and it was a bad environment. That team had been in the World Series 2 years earlier. They had Roger Clemens on there coming off of 2 Cy Young Awards, and they couldn't get out of their own way. And part of the problem was that the manager was toxic. So they got rid of McNamara and brought in Joe Morgan, and right away, from the day Morgan took over, the team was liberated and started winning right away. So in that case, it wasn't even the hiring of Morgan that mattered. It was the firing of McNamara, whose toxic behavior had been cut out from the team. Once they got rid of McNamara, they took off. It was addition by subtraction. I don't think that happened with Cora and Tracy. And the numbers bear it out. Again, they were 10-17 when they fired Cora. I think they were 22-29 after they hired Tracy. So that would make them 12-12 over 24 games. And the Red Sox themselves, meaning ownership and upper management, were ready to quote-unquote pivot and sell at the deadline. They were all ready to do that. Then something happened that completely changed their season. I'll tell you what that is when we come back. Jake Seymour's got your headlines. Don't go anywhere. The Red Sox to Toronto. He'll work out with the team before tonight's game. Based on everything the Red Sox have said to this point, Rutschman will not play tonight against the Blue Jays, but if everything goes fine and according to plan, every chance he could be activated for Game 2 of the series tomorrow against the Blue Jays. So one of the things to note about the Red Sox as they've won all these games, with the exception of obviously the series over the weekend, they really haven't done much of it or any of it with guys that they picked up at the deadline. That hasn't happened at all. Eli White played over the weekend. But beyond that, Rutschman hasn't played. Curtis Mead got hurt. The lefty they picked up, Eric Miller, had one appearance before yesterday, and then made an error on Saturday in a game they lost. But Miller has not had a direct hand or any sort of significant contribution. None of those guys have really made contributions yet. So in theory, we still have not seen potentially the best version of the Red Sox here going forward, leaving open the possibility that Crochet and or Roman Anthony could give them something somewhere down the road. You get the idea. Before I go to your phones, let me just, because I keep saying this over and over, and honestly, this part about Chad Tracy, whom again, let me make this clear. I like Chad Tracy. He's done a nice job. I see no reason to remove the interim tag yet. Worry about that after the season. Play it out. But this idea that the season completely shifted when they fired Cora is just flat out wrong. It's wrong. They were 10-17 when they fired Cora. Not too much after. They were 14 games under 500. So they also went 7 under with Tracy for the first month. And then you might say, well, they needed some time to adapt to the new manager. I've seen turnarounds that happen the second a guy gets fired. It is addition by subtraction. That did not happen here. The real reason this team turned around, if you ask me, is shortstop. Trevor Story played in 41 games this year. The Red Sox were 17-24 when he was on the field. You know what they are since Story went down? 47-29. Now, again, there might have been a little period in there. And I would add to you that I looked it up. There are 44 guys who had 170 plate appearances at shortstop this year in the major leagues, the entire majors. So let's just call them semi-regular shortstops. 44 guys. You know where Trevor Story ranked in WAR? 43rd. 43rd out of 44. He was the second worst semi-regular shortstop in the game. You know who was 40th? Marcelo Meyer. So I would submit to you that the Red Sox season changed when Marcelo Meyer and Trevor Story were out of the picture. Because they weren't getting great defense at the position, and they certainly weren't getting great offense at the position. Two of the worst players in the big leagues at their position had combined to give the Red Sox arguably the worst shortstop situation in the entire sport. So whether it was Cheng, Monasterio, Kiner Falefa, whoever else was out there, the Red Sox were way better off on both sides of the ball. The defense got better and the offense got better. Fewer strikeouts, more base runners, all that stuff. What they got was functional players on the field, and I don't want to stop at shortstop, but I think Story was such a suck on the Red Sox energy, and I mean that as a giant drain. He was such a drain on the Red Sox that removing him solved problems. Just keep that in mind if and when he's ready to come back. Because if he hasn't improved and he's not a better player, and he's still striking out a lot, even if he's playing second base, there's no point in having him out there. I will try to zip through as many calls as possible here over the last 10 minutes or so. I would just ask that you please try to be succinct. Keep it quick, keep it short, get right to the point so we can get as many callers in as possible. Matt's in Manchester again. Matt's in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah, hey guys. So I think the biggest thing with the difference between Tracy and Cora, and I am a Cora guy, was what we saw in the last couple of weeks within like that Thursday game against the White Sox. He brings in Guerrero, a high leverage guy, in the 5th inning down 2 runs. Like Cora would have threw Watson in that game, and it would have been done with. And the other thing is sending down Romy. Like that was one of Cora's guys. There's no way he would have sent him down. They would have sent Siegler down, and I just feel like Tracy's just going with the flow. I'm not saying that he's the manager of the year, but I just think for this team, he's so much better than what Cora was doing.
Yes. So, Matt, here's the part I'll agree with you on as you talk about the roster. Tracy and Breslow are in sync. Cora and Breslow were not. I've said this a million times. Show me any bad baseball organization or a team that's getting eaten from within, and I'm going to tell you the manager and the GM probably aren't getting along. Or they're not seeing it the same way philosophically. It's just not working. If that link is broken, the GM and the manager, it's over. The team's going to, again, it's going to eat itself from within. Marty's in Springfield. Go ahead, Marty.
Hey, Tony. I was laughing when you played the Rob Parker comment because that guy, he exaggerates. He's more miserable than my mother-in-law. But to get to the point, the reality is that the Red Sox are totally justified in DFAing Jarren Duran and Trevor Story at this point. I don't think they will, but they're totally justified.
Okay, so I would not DFA Jarren Duran at this point. I've said this as much as I thought the Red Sox should have gotten rid of Duran 2 years ago. I thought after the 2024 season was the time to cut bait with Jarren Duran. They didn't do it. His value was high. Apparently they looked into trading him, but they wanted to trade him like he was an MVP every year, which he wasn't going to be. And had they taken just a good offer instead of a great offer, they would have made the deal. But this was the wrong time to trade him. They're short on outfielders. Who knows what Roman Anthony's going to be when he comes back. And so they needed to keep Duran. No point creating another hole in the lineup. And I'm no Duran fan, but he has had some timely hits for them, and there's been some timely play. That game yesterday, the defensive play, an outfielder who can read the ball off the bat makes that play. He didn't. And there was a great tweet by Bill Koch of the Providence Journal who showed Duran's outfield, his route on that ball after it was contacted by Jonah Heim. And Duran started out by running directly sideways rather than running back on the ball. Had he gone at more of an angle from the get-go, he might have made the catch. And the Red Sox might have won the game. Pete's in Millville. Go ahead, Pete.
Hey, Maz. Hey, you're right on. I was at the game yesterday. I even think Duran took a small step in and then went sideways, right? So, terrible outfielder. He shouldn't be playing left field. But the point I want to make, Maz, is on Tracy. I do think Tracy is more aggressive on a base pass. Like he had a nice hit and run executed yesterday. But what I'm really afraid of with Tracy is I'm not sure if he has the plays in that clubhouse. I was one of those guys booing Contreras, but he wasn't the only one not running out ground balls to first base. It was almost the entire team, which I get worried about with Tracy. Okay, so Pete, there's a difference between not running one out and doing what Contreras did. Okay, anybody that tells you that the major leaguers all should sprint down the line to first base is out of their minds. So you were taught that as a kid in Little League because in Little League, there was every chance that someone was going to botch the ball and you had to run it out. In the major leagues, the large majority of those plays get made. So when a guy fields the ball cleanly and has a reputation of a good fielder, you know what the big leaguer says? Run at 80%. You don't have to run at 100, run at 80. If you run at 100 on every ground ball for 162 games over 6 months, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have nothing left at the end of the year. So you have to pace yourself. What Contreras did is peeled off halfway down first base and went to the dugout. He never touched first base. He quit on the play. That's what he did. He quit. Alex in Connecticut. Alex, go ahead.
Hey, Maz, I think that the turnaround of the season was when Kyle Bodie was finally gone. About a week later, Durbin found some new instructions. So did a lot of the other guys.
Yeah. So, Alex, look, I'm all for the driveline stuff. Believe me, I'm as interested in the philosophies of hitting and how teams and offenses approach it. But I will also tell you, the Red Sox aren't the only ones who subscribe to this philosophy. There are a lot of teams that do it. I think the Washington Nationals are chief among them, and they've had one of the best offenses in baseball. I think it's the personnel. The reason why the Red Sox started striking out less is because they got rid of Story, Meyer, and to some degree Roman Anthony, who was striking out a crazy amount of time this year without the benefit of being able to hit the way he hit last year. That's number one. The other thing is, I personally believe that they juiced the ball. In the middle of the season, the ball got jacked. and guys on the Red Sox who didn't have, and typically home runs go up in July and August anyway, but they should go up for everybody. The Red Sox have been hitting more home runs than other teams. How is that? Could it be just a fluke? And are they going to be able to hit him again when the weather gets cold? Because I wonder. So, but I think the big thing is they got rid of the strikeouts. That's what I think it was. They got rid of the strikeouts. Nick is in the car on the road talking about shortstops. Good, Nick.
Hey, Maz. Hope you're doing well. So if you were to ask me, I would love to see Franklin Arias be the starting shortstop come September and October. But my question to you is, who would you like to see as the starting shortstop come, September and then the playoffs? And more importantly, who do you think they'll pick? Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't think it's going to be Arias. I think that it's a little too early for him. And from what I understand, too, there are some other variables with Franklin Arias that come into play. He's not on the 40-man roster at the moment, or at least I don't think he was. He wasn't when I left. I don't think they've added him yet, Jimmy. And in order to play in the big leagues, you have to be on the 40-man roster. But to do that, you then have to get rid of someone else. So every indication is that Arias is not going to play in the big leagues this year. Okay, I thought you might see him in September. And it's possible that would happen, but I doubt it. So what I do know is this. I don't want to see Trevor Story there. I don't love Monasterio at the position. What I would love to see is a Cheng back on the roster, Sung-Shae Cheng, just because I think he's the best defensive player they have. And if the Red Sox get into, you tell me you want to play Monasterio for the first 6 innings, fine, no problem. You want the bat, and he's done a nice job overall of late, at least offensively. Defensively, he had 3 errors in that series against the A's out in Sacramento. So you want to tell me that you want to put Cheng on the bench, maybe play him against some righties, hit him at the bottom of the order, use him for defensive replacement, fine. But I would like to have a good shortstop on the roster, a good defensive shortstop on the roster for the postseason, even if you don't start him. Rich and Millbury. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, we lost 2 games in a row, and people seem to panic. Do you think the Dodgers panicked when they lost 6 in a row?
No, but are you going to really compare the Red Sox roster to the Dodgers?
The best team in the league loses 6 in a row. Everyone loses games.
Okay, yeah, but you just were talking about the level of panic. And honestly, I don't think people here are panicking. I joked about it earlier, but I'm not panicking either. I think the Red Sox are going to make the playoffs. I think they fixed their season. Now, what will they do in the playoffs? I don't know. Tell me, does Aaron Judge come back? What does it look like? Is Jake Bennett pitching in October like he's pitching now? Same for Aroldis Chapman? They're not going to go 32-5 over 37 games. I'll tell you that. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but if you were betting today, right now, over under 32 wins the rest of the way, which one are you picking? So don't be ridiculous.
I'm not picking either one of those, Tony.
Okay, Andrew, New Hampshire. Andrew, stop talking for 1 second, just so I can introduce you. Andrew's in New Hampshire, wants to talk about Brian Bayo. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's good in the reliever spot, but I think this summer has been awesome for Sox fans, and it's just, dude, it's good, but we gotta be critical too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Andrew, I've never had a problem on that part of it. I told you. Yesterday, I was golfing with some people. Said, "Wow, 32-5." I said, "Yeah, they just lost 2 in a row. Let's see what happens." I can't help it. So, look, the critical part is, to me, is always part of the equation. They're not perfect. They seem to play their worst against the A's. Jimmy, do you find that weird? They played 7 games against the A's. They lost. They went 4-3 in those 7. They've only lost 6 games in the last month and a half. 3 of them have been to Oakland. I'm sorry, the A's. So I maybe there's something there about just the A's dragging down the level of competition.
Or the A's they know your signs better than anybody else. They're cheating.
Could be that, Jimmy. It also, and even the 4 wins that the Red Sox had against the A's overall were kind of a grind. They had to fight for those games. So they just have they have a tough matchup problem or something with the A's. I don't get it. Hopefully it won't spill into tonight. If they lose 3 in a row, I do wonder whether some people say, oh, here we go.
That's called a losing streak, Maz. It has happened before.
Correct. Anyway, Joe Murray in tonight? Is that who's in?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, Joe Murray's in. He'll have you for the balance of the night. Jake Seymour will have your headlines here momentarily. We'll catch you tomorrow again. Red Sox play the Jays tonight in Toronto. Start of a 4-game series. They'll be in Pittsburgh over the weekend. So games every day this week, and we will be happy to keep you up to date on the Baseball Hour all week long and for the balance of the season. Again, Jake will be up shortly, and then Joe has you tonight. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Come celebrate summer at Bernardi Honda with our lowest prices of the year. Plus, get great financing rates on our hottest models. So don't wait. Come in today and save big at Bernardi Honda.